Welcome to Pilgrim Congregational Church, United Church of Christ. We're glad you could join us here in Redding, California. It's been a week of remembrance at Pilgrim. Last Sunday, under the tutelage of Reverend Steve Kindle, we remembered the many surprises of our God. In that same service, and throughout the long weekend, we remembered the wisdom and the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. On Tuesday, we remembered Peggy Linville, who was undergoing open heart surgery, and Nancy Dutton Hill and her family upon the passing of her father. Also on Tuesday, with the ringing of handbells, we remembered the 400,000 Americans who have died of COVID-19. And on Wednesday, we remembered our 200-year legacy of the peaceful transfer of political power. Today, we will be remembering the 10 members and friends of Pilgrim Congregational Church who passed away in 2020. If you have your own beloveds to remember, I invite you to bring them into the light and the love of God during the remainder of this service. And now, would you join me in a few words of prayer? Holy One, source of all life, remind us. Remind us of heroes who have shown us the way. Remind us of great histories that deserve to be maintained. Remind us of loved ones who need our care and concern. Remind us of your everlasting faithfulness, even when it surprises or mystifies us. Remind us, and then hold us in the palm of your hand until we quiet our souls. Amen.
Through all our hopes and fears. I'm lighting this candle for all the pilgrims that we lost in 2020.
Good morning, Pilgrim kids. I hope you had a wonderful week. This week has been a week of joy and celebration with the coming in of a new president, but it's also been a week of remembering. This week we take time to recognize and celebrate people we lost in 2020. What does it mean to lose someone? It's a hard topic for us to talk about because when we lose someone, it means that that person is not in our life anymore. But that doesn't mean that they're not in our hearts. It doesn't mean that they don't have a piece of us and we have a piece of them. Talking about people who have died is something that can be really, really difficult for lots of us, and especially for me. This year, I lost a very special friend, a confident, strong, beautiful friend. We hadn't been friends for very long, but she left a huge impact on me. She opened my heart in ways I never thought a new friend could do. She made me feel loved and she made me feel special. And when I lost her this year, I felt really, really sad. There were some days I felt like things would never, ever, ever be the same again because I loved her so much. And sometimes when someone we love dies, it feels like we might not be able to get up. We might not be able to move forward. But we do. We get up, we ride the wave of grief and sadness, and then we stand up and we enjoy the sunshine. That sunshine is life. That sunshine is living and remembering that person. This year has been a hard year for our congregation, our church family, our neighbors, our friends, our country. But it brings me to a quote by Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. When the gusty winds blow and shake our lives, if we know that people care about us, we may bend with the wind, but we won't break. This year, we are all bending, but we're not going to break. We're going to remember the people that we loved, that we love, and they will forever live on in our hearts. I'm giving you guys all a big hug, and I love you all, and I can't wait to see you all real soon.
Psalm chapter 62, verses 5 through 8. Yes, my soul, find rest in God. My hope comes from him. Truly, he is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress, and I will not be shaken. My salvation and my honor depends on God. He is my mighty rock, my refuge. Trust in him at all times. You people, pour out your hearts to him, for God is our refuge. Hebrews chapter 12, 1 and 2, verses 1 and 2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sins that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him as he endures the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God.
Every year, some pilgrims pass from this life to the next. But in 2020, 10 of our number went on before. Today, I want to remember those members and friends, reminding all of us to stop and appreciate the lives they lived and the gifts they gave. Because I have such a number of saints to recall, I can only give the briefest of recollections. Still, I hope that with every name and with every story, a face, a smile, a warmth of remembrance will appear to you and give you pause. Ken Steele lived a full and fruitful 95 years. One of 5 boys, raised during the Great Depression by relatives after the death of his father and his mother, Ken had a rough start in life. Nonetheless, Ken finished high school as president of his senior class and went on to be a paratrooper in World War II. After the war, and ending up in Shingletown, California, Ken met and married Beverly Lovelet, went to work in the woods, and became an exemplary father to 5 children. Ken's spirituality ran deep. He was a lover of nature. He read widely. He practiced yoga and meditation, and he was a long-time faithful member of Pilgrim Church. His children say their father never lost his temper, taught more by his actions than his words, and he proved that strong people can still be kind people. Harry Daniel was 91 years young when he passed away in March. Born and raised in Maine, Harry was a fine student. Valedictorian of his high school at only age 16, he went on to graduate from Cornell University and then on to medical school. Harry married Barbara Bobby McConnell in 1952, and the young couple moved to Burlington, Vermont following medical school. Enlisting in the United States Army, Harry completed his residency at Walter Reed Medical Center. Leaving active duty in 1962, Harry and Bobby took 2 years to explore the West Coast, and they chose to relocate to Reading in 1964. Harry's long medical career found him researching and publishing right up to the end. He received national recognition for his work on relating smoking to premature aging and to osteoporosis. Harry was a much-loved physician to generations of Reading residents, but he also had a rich life away from the practice of medicine. Another lover of nature, he was a hiker, an excavator of historical sites, and an avid runner. Harry ran 64 marathons and countless shorter races. Harry also found time for amazing community service. An active member of Pilgrim Church, he also donated his time and efforts to college and high school athletics, the YMCA, the Friends of the Library, the Shasta Historical Society, and the Shasta Land Trust. He was a major supporter of Riverfront Playhouse and a longtime board member of the Lassen Park Foundation. In my life, Harry was my very best volunteer in caring for the landscape of Pilgrim Church. He was the first to arrive on a workday and always the last to leave. In his late 80s, he could quietly work till you had to beg him to quit. Dick Kaler dedicated his life to community mental health and to his family. Husband to Paula Ryan and father to 3 sons, Dick believed in the value of education, physical activity, time spent in the great outdoors and in pursuing an active faith. Also a runner, Dick completed 7 marathons and numerous shorter races. He enjoyed hiking, fishing, camping, backpacking, and being a fan of the Cincinnati Reds, the San Francisco Giants, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Golden State Warriors. Supporting and encouraging his sons in organized sports, Dick often volunteered as an assistant coach, as well as belonging to parent booster organizations. Every Sunday, Dick could be found at Pilgrim Congregational Church. Often he was at the door, greeting old friends and new. And after worship, he would show his kindness by sitting with Don Crandall, while Don's busy wife, Sue, was attending a meeting. Dick would also regularly visit his homebound friend, Richard Langan. Dick lived long enough to welcome 3 grandchildren into this world. Kira, Evan, and Hattie all knew his love and pride as they began their precious lives. Each of their daddies will continue to tell them stories about their kind, loving, and supportive grandfather. Maggie Serro, a beautiful, creative lady. Maggie arrived at church every Sunday in lovely, often handmade clothes. This interest in sewing was shared by her sisters and mother and nurtured in Maggie's early life. Well into her later years, Maggie could be found working on a sewing project. The beloved mother of 2 daughters and the grandmother of 1 young man, Maggie loved her husband John and her many friends in the Reading area. A bank teller at Crocker Bank for many years, Maggie then volunteered at the North Valley Art League. Her home was lovingly decorated with the work of many local artists. Besides sewing and art, Maggie loved to travel. She took cruises in the Caribbean and through the Panama Canal, a bus tour of Italy, and a float plane over the Alaskan glaciers. Quiet and serene, Maggie's presence is missed by her family, her friends, and her church family at Pilgrim. Maggie, however, may even now be making heaven an even lovelier place. Wilma Steele was known for her smiling face, generous nature, and for being Danish. Wilma was also known as a loving mother, a loving wife, a grandmother, and for being the first teacher of the year in Shasta County. Wilma taught for 40 years in the Shasta Union Elementary District, plus for another 15 years as a substitute after her official retirement. She taught 3 generations of kindergarten students who loved and respected her guidance and kindness, and she remembered every single one of them. Wilma and her husband Myron square danced for many years and traveled the world. They both encouraged others to broaden their worldviews and their understanding of different cultures. Welcoming foreign exchange students into their Reading home became a particular pleasure for Wilma and Myron and led to lifelong friendships. Wilma was a contributing member of many organizations, including Pilgrim Congregational Church. She blessed this world for 89 years. Joanne Nelson was a character. Artistic and well-educated, Joanne was also feisty, cantankerous, and opinionated. Married and divorced with no children, Joanne was cared for in her later years by members of Pilgrim Church, her niece, and the staff at Willow Springs Memory Care Facility. Joanne did her best to participate in church functions, serving as an usher for many years and donating her art for display at the French Country Market. Prickly and hard to love, Joanne gave us all a chance to practice patience, understanding, and occasionally forgiveness. May she rest in peace and find the next life a kinder and gentler place. Don Crandall brought a smile to everyone's face. He loved to give and get hugs, tell a story, and laugh long and hard. The only child of a career Navy officer, Don saw lots of the world. On Christmas Day in 1940, Don and his mother arrived in Honolulu, where his father was stationed. Don's experiences there, including the attack on Pearl Harbor, are recounted in his book, The Spies of Lanikai. Don attended many different schools, but eventually graduated from UC Berkeley, where he received his teaching credential. Early in his teaching career, he was called to serve in the U.S. Army and was sent to Japan. Returning from abroad, Don met Sue Probst for a second time, for they had both been swimmers in high school, and they married in 1956. Don returned to teaching in the Danville and Alamo area and remained there for the next 40 years. After retirement, Don and Sue relocated to Redding to be near their son Stuart, daughter Sarah, and their respective families. Don was an active man and enjoyed snow skiing, camping, and holidays at the beach. He and Sue also took frequent trips to Hawaii, cross-country road trips, and for their 50th anniversary, they spent a month in France. Don loved coming to church, watching his grandchildren grow up, caring for his fellow Pearl Harbor survivors, and the Cal Bears. Don's parting advice to all of us was to follow our bliss. Mel Hammer was a handful. Stubborn and opinionated, you had to work to stay on the good side of Mel. An early member of Pilgrim Church, he helped raise the amazing stone walls of our Frank Lloyd Wright building, and he served as both treasurer and moderator of our congregation. Mel got crosswise with a former minister about 10 years ago and withdrew his membership from the church. That had to be very painful for him, and I know it was for his wife, Mary Hammer. Still, after a lengthy career with the U.S. Forest Service, Mel had many interests, and he stayed busy caring for his home, collecting antique bottles, working jigsaw puzzles, the bigger the better, and exploring family genealogy. In earlier years, Mel and Mary also enjoyed raising 3 children, traveling, square dancing, and building a wine collection. I will always remember Mel as a fierce protector of his wife, Mary. He drove her everywhere, brought caregivers into their home when necessary, and insisted, whether that was for the best or not, that they could stay in their own home for as long as he was alive. And that turned out to be true. Mel's life ended when he was felled by a major stroke, but he and Mary had been in their home right up to that week. Sometimes stubbornness produces remarkable results. Jim Carr was never without a book or a pet in his household. From childhood, he loved to read and play music and sing and care for animals. Jim attended Iowa State Teachers College and, despite being busy with many student activities, he found the time to meet, date, and wed his wife, Mary. They spent their honeymoon in 1962 driving out to Southern California, where teaching jobs awaited them both. In 1968, with 2 young sons in tow, they moved to Redding. That same year, Jim and Mary adopted a baby girl, Jill. Jim taught in Redding and Shasta Lake Elementary school districts for 35 years. He also established a family business creating hand-woven garments which included raising sheep and traveling nationwide. After years of playing the piano and the cello, Jim took up choral singing. He sang with the Shasta College Chorale and took lead roles in musicals produced by Shasta College. Many of us also knew him best by his time in the Pilgrim Choir. Jim volunteered at church, for the Cascade Theater, for the Rose Society, and with AAUW. He also stayed busy planning and coordinating family reunions. His greatest joy came from being with family, whether at reunions with grandchildren or officiating at a family wedding. Many of us can still hardly believe that Jim has passed. He will always be remembered by his family, friends, and former students as a kind and caring man. Pete Anderson hadn't been active at Pilgrim Church for a number of years, but he continued to receive news of our congregation and to support us financially. A longtime resident of Anderson in Reading, he was known and loved by many. For 30 years, Pete served as an agent for Allstate Insurance, and he earned a reputation for honest, supportive work. Pete and his first wife, Frances, loved to dance, sail, camp, and travel. With 3 daughters and 1 son, Pete spent many happy hours with his family. Pete and Frances had 53 years of marriage. After Frances' death, Pete married Carol Sandberg, and they celebrated 15 years together before Carol passed away. Pete lived to be 94 years old, and he died on the same date that he had entered this world, on December 18th. 10 pilgrims. That's a lot of loved ones to lose in 1 year. It is good to give ourselves time and space to remember, to grieve, and to celebrate their lives. In the text our Pilgrim Book Club is now reading, Reverend Michael Curry writes, "We will always grieve those we love when they are no longer living. And yet, the love we humans experience, as powerful and durable as it is only a faint reflection of God's love, which is eternal, the source of all love. And that is the love that welcomes and embraces those we love when this mortal life is over." That is our faith, and that can be our image of God's love welcoming and embracing our loved ones when this life is over. Today again, we name our friends and family members who have recently died, and again, we release them to God's love. We do not, however, forget them, nor the gifts they have given. For all the saints, we whisper our thanks. Amen. May we each remember and honor those who have gone on before. And then may we trust that they have been embraced by God's love and are being held close to God's heart. Amen.